Hello all. Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Dana and I will be your host today for today's podcast. Joining me is a post-cardiac surgery patient who will be sharing their journey and story of the experience that they've gone through. Beverly Nelson, currently a communications instructor at NBCC in the engineering department, mother of two young adults, former fitness instructor of over 30 years and looking to get back into teaching in the college. Bev is an active go-getter in her community and is always looking for new opportunities to help others by giving back and sharing her skills. She enjoys the outdoors, walking, hiking, biking, and doing photography along the way. Her philosophy is always inspiring others to be their best at any age and loves reminding others that age is just a number. It's your attitude that counts. So welcome, Bev. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for taking the time in the middle of your teaching day to speak with me.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thanks. So I'd like to start us off by asking if you can briefly share your experience leading up to being admitted for your cardiac operation and what really happened that led to your hospitalization.
Right. Well, thank you for having me, and I'm happy to be here to help in any way I can. The events that kind of led up to me being in the hospital were with 6 months before my admittance to the Moncton Hospital, I had gone through a lot of loss in my family and in my life. So within the last 6 months prior to that, I'd lost my father and my mother and a brother-in-law to two to Alzheimer's, one to a sudden death. And I had finished a degree that I'd been working on for 3.5 years in the evening. So I was going to school part-time for 3.5 years, and I graduated with that in the middle. And then I lost my job, found a job within about 3 or 4 days and started up again. And then I had a flood at my house. So all of that stress is, I think, what led me to being in the hospital. So the night of the flood at my house, I went to bed and I was exhausted, emotionally, physically, all that kind of good stuff, and just felt not well. And I had been widowed a number of years before that, so I was on my own doing a lot of, the things for two partners down to one were taken care of, and I had two children that were teenagers at that time. So it was a busy time and in lots of sports and things. So I went to bed that night, didn't feel well, kind of was so exhausted though. I kept waking up with kind of pain and thinking, am I exhausted pain? What kind of pain is that? And I remember laying in bed going, could I be having a heart attack? And I thought, nah, right? And then I was thinking of the commercial with the tips on, different signs of a heart attack. And I thought, I don't think I have any of those, so I should be okay. And then I would fall asleep because I was so exhausted. And this happened a number of times through the night that I just kept waking up and going, something's not right, but I'm so exhausted, I don't even want to get up, and I don't know what to do about it. And it didn't seem like super serious kind of, but I just knew something wasn't right. So anyway, I slept through to the morning, got up and got the kids off to school, and actually my son at the time was working. He had taken a year off from between high school and college, so he took a year off, so he was working. And I sent them off, and I was getting ready for work myself, and by the time I got to work, I was in a lather of I felt nauseous. Something wasn't right. And I worked in a little shop within a senior center is where I was working. And so I went to one of the other new employees, and I said, because I was new, I was like, I don't feel very good, and I don't want to have to go home like I'm new. And she said, oh, my gosh, you don't look good either. Like I was just really pale. And she said, we have nurses here. I'll go get a nurse. So she ran and got a nurse. The nurse came to check me out, and she said, you could be having a heart attack, but, your blood pressure seems kind of okay, but I would really recommend you go to the hospital just to be checked out because of my age. I was, at the time, it was 2014.
What prompted her to think that you might be having a heart attack? Was there something that she noticed or just an overall?
Just an overall, I was thinking something's wrong. And I just was really emotionally I was like, and my intuition was very heightened when my husband passed away, that I was having nightmares before he passed. that I couldn't find him, that we thought there was something wrong with me. So I really trust my intuition since then, that I knew something wasn't right. So she said, well, just to be safe, you should go. And because of my age, I was 52, maybe it was 25, I'm not sure, 50 something. And anyway, so I thought, well, I'm not bad enough to maybe go by ambulance, but I need to get there, and I don't want to drive. So I called my son. He came right away and picked me up and took me to the hospital. He went in, and by then I was feeling kind of relieved we were at the hospital, so somebody was going to take care of me, but I was just feeling really nauseous and hot. So I said to my son, please go to the desk, tell him your mother's 50-some, and she's not feeling well, and her chest feels tight. And as soon as they did that, they whipped me right through. So they got me in there, and they did, I guess, a blood test. I don't really remember all of that, but then they came back, and so I was sitting with my son in one of the emergency rooms, and they came back and told me that I had a heart attack. And I was like, what? So I looked at my son and I went, what? Because my husband had unfortunately passed away in front of my son when he was 10. So I just thought, thank heavens I'm here and I'm okay, getting help, because I never really believed it was a heart attack, but I knew something wasn't right. So then they just said, Mrs. Nelson, you'll be staying with us for a while, and I was just kind of in shock, I think, for the next while.
Yeah.
And I just tried to, what does that mean, right? So then I kind of just got scared. Right?
Did they keep you overnight that day?
Yes, they checked me in, and I was put in a room. I was taken up to intensive care, put in a room, put monitors on me, put me in bed, and said I'm staying there until they tell me to do otherwise.
Yeah.
So.
Did you have time to, emotionally and mentally go through it and think about what may have prompted this or what happened, or was it also quick that it just all had to sink in?
It took a while to sink in.
Right.
And then I got thinking, whoa. And then I kind of got scared just to move.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was thinking, I was kind of, do I have to be careful and still? What would cause that?
What are you supposed to do, really?
Yeah, like what? And then I remember them saying about an aspirin or whatever.
Yes.
Should I have done that? But I didn't have any. I just kept replaying kind of, and then I thought, and then I went to the commercial and I went, but I didn't have any of those signs. And she goes, oh, those are for men. And that's when I was like, what?
Right.
So that's when it was a trigger for me to go, oh, well, that's not right. Why doesn't it say these are for men, these are for women in the commercial?
Yes.
So that was a big awakening for me. And it, was just a real awakening for our whole family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, thank heavens I'm here. Like I remember just praying. First thing I was saying is, thank you that I'm here, Lord, and people are going to take care of me. So I'm in good hands,
Yeah, you're in the right place.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I'm in intensive care, and they hooked me all up, and I was in a bed, and they just told me to rest, and they'd be back to me later. So at the time, I was so exhausted that I just laid there, and I kind of had a little cry, just, relief, I guess, that I had been on my own for 7 years as a widow, and my husband passed so suddenly that I felt like I was in survivor mode for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so just know somebody was going to take care of me. Was it really?
I understand. Yeah. No, I understand.
Yeah. So anyway, so I was so grateful that I was resting, but I was trying to be grateful for the resting, but at the same time going, what about the kids? What about my world, my job, my new job, right? And it was just such a mixture of emotions, I guess. Because you're laying in bed going, okay, I'm resting, but what about my kids? Who knows what, and how
your
are
brain
they?
is still in active mode. You're still active.
Oh my God, I was just, because my daughter had gone from, my husband had passed so quickly that she had slept with me and was beside me every minute of the day for 2 years after he died, and she was just finding her independence. So for this to happen, I was like, oh no, we're not going to go back to that, are we? Mm-hmm. And, just concerned for their well-being, right? So and I had gone to a lot of counseling to help me be strong for the kids because I said, I'm broken. They're broken. How do I help them be okay while I'm healing too? So.
Were you given any counseling while you were in hospital, like during that time frame?
No, not counseling as such. No.
Yeah.
That in my own head more than anything else, right?
Yeah.
My biggest thing I did is, because I always say my faith or my sense of humor is what keeps me going since my husband's passing. And some days it's more of my humor and some days it's more of my faith. And so having just had the loss of both my parents, I kind of and it was funny because the night before, this is just kind of the night before when I was in church, I was so exhausted. And I remember the music was playing, and I just loved the music because I used to sing in church and stuff. And I remember thinking, dear Lord, what I wouldn't give for a week off. And I ended up in the hospital for 7 days. So it was kind of, and I thought, this wasn't what I had in mind for my 7 days off. I was thinking beach, drinks, and sun and sand, and I thought, gosh, this isn't even good food, let alone. So it was kind of like, really, Lord, you have a sense of humor, don't you? So I was laying in the bed, and I remember just feeling so exhausted and relieved that somebody was going to take care of me for a bit. And I just had to lay here that I put my mom on one side of my pillow and my dad on the other and my husband at the head of my bed. And I said, okay, apparently I don't know what's going on, and I'm not in charge, so I'll just rest. And I slept on and off, I'm telling you, for at least 3 days.
Wow. How long were you in the hospital for? How long were you in ICU before they transferred you?
I was in ICU the whole entire week.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so I just rested. And I remember there was a lady in the next bed who I spoke with a little bit, but I never saw her. That's how little I moved. I never saw her. We talked, but we never sat up to talk to each other, like to see each other. I had no idea. I just laid in that bed and I did nothing else but rest and then eat when they fed me or, talk to them if they came to see me. So, yeah.
Do you remember how often you had someone come in to see you or talk to you or debrief you on what's happening or how often you knew really what was going on?
Right. Well, they had me hooked up to a monitor, so they were watching me for that. So they just said, to give me comfort. I remember the nurse was saying, now, don't be concerned, Mrs. Nelson. We have you set up to the monitor and we can see you at the desk. You know what I mean? So we're keeping track of you. So that was kind of a comfort that, because I was nervous. Like I thought, how delicate is my heart? What happened to it? Like, what is happening? Like I didn't know, I was just trying to lay still and, rest and be grateful for my rest. So that I could be in the best position, I guess, that I could do because there was no control, right? So, and I wasn't allowed to see anybody except for my children.
Okay.
And I remember that they took my phone from me too, my kids, so that I didn't have any contacts or no emotional stuff up and down. And anyway, I just pretty much just rested, but I don't recall a lot of disruption of people coming in. It was mostly just keeping an eye on me, bringing me some food, and they were trying to assess, so I think waiting for the doctor to come in. And all I remember is the doctor coming in saying, we're just waiting to send you to St. John, right? And we're going to prepare you for that. But it's just a matter of, I guess, priority, like, if there was somebody bigger priority than me.
Yes.
Timing, I guess. So I was basically just waiting. And I waited for a few days. So I just rested, ate, stayed still, and did that for the most part. I was going down. Okay, so I ended up, say, Wednesday, let me see now. I don't know what day of the week it was. It must have been a Monday or something that I went. But I remember 3 days in, maybe I started seeing people, but I wasn't really understanding what we were doing. But they were telling me that I was going to be going to St. John, and I can't remember who exactly, because I remember not a counselor. What's that person? Kind of like a benefits person of what I was going to need, like medication, like my Aster thing. Like they were saying that
like a discharge person.
I don't think it was a discharge person at that point.
Okay.
I can't remember what the person was, but they were talking to me about what we anticipated my situation was going to be.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay? So they were saying that we're waiting to send you to St. John to have the cardiologist, I believe, look at your heart and see what needs to be done.
Did you have a cardiologist before or no?
No.
Okay.
And this was the cardiologist that at some point I had a gentleman that was at the Moncton Hospital that was the cardiologist there, and then I met the guy in St. John when I went for the procedure. So this person was telling me that they anticipated that I'd be going to St. John, being assessed, and that likely I was going to need 1 or 2 stents or whatever to put in to fix my heart. And then depending on what the damage or extent of my damage was, whether I was going to be staying overnight in St. John or whether I would be just have this procedure and come back, depending on what happened when I got to St. John and they assessed me. And then she said there would likely be, we anticipate at least 1 stint, if not 2 or 3 or whatever. And so she said there'd be medications involved with that. And so the medications would cost somewhere between, I don't know, $200 or $300. I just remember it was more money and I didn't have benefits because I just started a job. And, but I was very peaceful because my little angels, I felt like, were with me. And I was just having faith that somebody was taking care of me and I didn't need to worry because I didn't have the energy to worry. And, but she explained to me that there was going to be a high expensive medical cost for medications a month, and that I would be monitored and go through, so many weeks of rest, and then go through some kind of cardiac therapy thing or something right after that when I was healing, I guess. And I remember thinking that, I remember saying to her, but I don't have benefits, like I don't have anything to cover that. And all I was thinking was, wow, if I can't pay that and I have to pay, depending, $300 to $500 a month in medications, then I was like, how am I going to pay that? So now it's causing me some stress, but I'm going, I can't be stressed because that's hard on my heart, so I need to let it go. So I just spent a lot of time praying.
Yeah, that's where you found it.
Yep, right? Yeah. So anyway, so they told me those kinds of things, so that's all I really knew at that point.
Okay.
And then when I went down to St. John later that week, I remember being in the ambulance, and, our roads, it was just kind of funny, but this is just me in the ambulance, but I'm like, I got a delicate heart here, people, and I got 2 kids that need me in the ambulance, and it's not the most comfortable ride, really, because the roads are bumpy and whatever, right? And you're facing, what's really weird is you're facing the back of the ambulance, so it's a different perspective, too, of movement, right? Anyway, it was just kind of weird, but I remember going, gosh, take it easy with you. I'm delicate here. We don't know what's going on. And it was kind of funny as I was driving. I was like, God, can't they be a little more gentle or have better shocks? Or anyway, it was just kind of a funny thing. I was trying to entertain myself because I had said to my kids, I said, don't you worry, Mom's going for a little tune-up, and and I was in my early 50s, and I said, I'm just going for a little tune-up, going to get all tuned up and be good for another 50 years.
Yeah.
And trying to alleviate their fear, right?
And still had to support them even when you
like the whole time, right? So you're on the whole time, right? And they had dealt with enough loss that they knew how delicate. I couldn't pull the wool over their eyes, right? And even letting me go to St. John was a big deal, and them not being able to come with me, right? So anyway, when I got there, it was amazing when I got there, I got to say. That I was nervous as heck, and I just remember being brought in to this big room. I called it the parking lot in my mind, because on one side of the room they would bring you in and wheel you onto one side of the room, all these beds, and the ladies there were lovely that would come and greet you, and the nurses, I guess, and they would come and say, hello, Mrs. Nelson, and we're just going to prepare you, and we're going to, I guess there's a number or a couple of different rooms where they're doing these procedures, like of taking a look at hearts. I don't know what you call that, but anyway, so she said, we're just waiting for your turn. And they were assigning, like you're going in room 1, year 2, year 3, and then they would whatever. We're just waiting for your turn. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, hey, what's coming, right? So anyway, I just waited and kind of observed. And as I was observing people that were coming out of the rooms, they were parking on the other side of the room, right? And then people were dealing with them about and following up with. I couldn't hear all the conversations, of course. Didn't really want to because I didn't know what was want to know.
Yeah.
But they were, discussing with them what was their next steps, right? So I said, wow, that's pretty cool. They got us all organized. So that was a pretty pleasant experience, you know what I mean? Like, I was nervous, but that was to be expected, so.
Yeah. Was that the day of your cardiac surgery?
Yeah, well, see, they ended up taking me in to do whatever they do, the test where they cut in the dye test.
Yes.
Like they
The
cut and do the
catheterization?
Is that where they put the blue dye in and see what your heart's doing? Is that what that is?
I think so. They would have done that. They would have.
They cut my wrist and put the blue dye up my arm and then to my heart to see what's going on. All I know is I was in this big room, just me on a table, and I remember the doctor was behind a big plexiglass screen, and I thought, is that in case I bleed? And he doesn't want to get. Anyway, it was just funny how
The
your mind works.
radiation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I just remember him saying this is going to burn, and I remember thinking burn, and it did burn for like a split seconds, right? And then he says, and then this is going to be warm, and I thought, okay, warm is a better word than burn. And then you felt the warm sensation of the dye going through, I guess.
Right.
And then the cardiologist asked me, Mrs. Nelson, you're 50-some, right? And I said, yes, I am. And I remember saying I'm in my prime, but he didn't think that was funny. But anyway, it's all good. So then he just said, and I remember saying, are those good hums or are they bad hums? And he said, no, they're good, but in all my years, I've never seen this before. And I said, oh, good? Never seen this? And he said, no, good. He said that he said that I don't have any damage, that I didn't need any further surgery.
Okay.
And I said, well, what do you mean? You don't see any damage, then why am I here? Right? And he said, oh no, I see what your heart did. So your heart actually, he said, it's not that the valves are, blocked or whatever. Like that's not the issue. What happened was one of my valves closed off, what do you call it? Flexed, like constricted, that it blocked the flow, like it tightened up and shut off the blood flow for long enough for it to read as a heart attack, and then it released.
Okay.
So the blood flow, started again or commenced again. Yeah. And he could see where it had done that.
I see.
So what he explained to me is that the good thing about that is that it shows that I don't have hardening of the arteries, that they're flexible. Because see, my mother's side of the family, the history, my mother's entire family died of heart disease or heart attack.
Okay.
Every one of them around 60. So that's why my heart was such a big issue for me. And on my dad's side, we had the cancer side. But anyway, so I just said, oh, okay. So you see what my heart did, but there's no damage to the arteries as such, so we don't need any stents. And he said, no, you don't. And he says, but I've never seen this before. That he says, for a 50-year-old, in all my years, I've never seen one with such a healthy heart at 50. And I said, I don't understand, because that's not possible, because, my husband had passed very suddenly, and we were so kind of, I call it broken at the time, that I couldn't remember if I ate. I couldn't remember what I did, like from one minute to the next. And I guess your memory is what grief affects, I guess, which I didn't know. But I could remember what I did for my children. But I didn't have a lot of energy, so I had bought enough cooked chickens and Caesar salads from the grocery store that I didn't feel I was doing my best as a mother in food, but I was feeding them, And because it was such a trying time, I was trying to do my best, but I thought, it's not the epitome of healthy eating and, you know what I mean? Like, but I thought I'll get better and I'll do better as I go, right? And I was doing better, but I just thought you know. So I thought, how am I really that healthy? You know what I mean? So he just said, yeah, I know. He said, I feel like you're a little bit of a miracle in that sense, he said, because your heart is really almost that of a 35-year-old.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, okay, I'll
Like,
take it.
woohoo, I'm happy.
I know, I'm like, okay. Like, it didn't seem like the most excited person, but I was like, yes. Inside I was going, yes,
Yeah.
yay me. And, you know, even if there's no explanation, I'm like, and I'm going for it. So that's kind of where he just said, you're not going to need anything.
Okay.
And that's kind of all I really knew at that point.
Okay. So after that, what was the recovery process like while you were in the hospital?
So
And was there anybody that came to you, any hospital staff who stood out in terms of the care that they provided, or you needed that and they were able to provide that for you?
right. So when that finished, I came out of that and ended up, my sister surprised me. And because I wasn't expecting to see any family. And my sister from Fredericton and my other sister from Moncton had come to meet me. And all I remember seeing is just seeing them because I wasn't expecting. And I remember saying, I have happy arteries. Like, or awesome arteries. I said, I have awesome. And I started sobbing because I thought, my arteries are good. I don't need stents. And I thought that was like, we need a party because I'm going to be okay. And, but I didn't know what that meant. And so they took me back to Moncton, put me back to bed. Didn't really know much more than that. And then the next morning, the doctor came, and he said, you know, he gave the report, and that's when he said that we really are flabbergasted at what your heart is telling us and how it looks. And so, of course, my memory not being that great, I had a pen and paper by my bed because I was making notes every time somebody was talking to me so I could make sure I remember anything important that I needed to know. So I had my pen and paper ready for all the information he was going to tell me. And he said, we're just going to do a test to see how your heart reacts because my heart reacted to the stress, and the stress is what caused the contraction of my artery, that they were going to do a test, and that if I, like a stress test, and if I pass that, then my heart should be good, but that I had to manage my stress moving forward. And that's when he asked me about my stress levels, and I kind of gave him the Coles Notes of my last 6 months, and he went, and I kind of, first I giggled, and he went, Mrs. Nelson, this is not a laughing matter. And I said, oh, no, I'll start crying if I don't laugh. Because when I told him, he went, oh, no wonder you're stressed. There's so much stress on you. So he said, managing your stress will be the key to your success. That's the one thing I remember. And then he said, we're going to do a stress test, see how your heart reacts. And if that is good, then we feel that you will be okay. And I'm like, okay. So I'm still kind of, I've laid in bed now for 6 days, and I'm like, okay. So they came in, put a pair of sneakers on me, put me in a wheelchair, took me downstairs, and put me on a treadmill. And then they just pushed me on the treadmill till I was short of breath. And then they put me back in the wheelchair and whipped me down a hall to some other little monitor machine that I laid on, and it moved around me to take pictures of my heart.
Okay.
It wasn't big like a MRI, but I don't know what it was. It was a smaller thing, I guess. And they took, the scans right away to see how my heart was reacting. And then they took me in the wheelchair and back to bed.
Okay.
And so then I just went back to bed, and I thought, I don't know what that was, but I made it, so I'm good. And then the doctor came back and just saw me for a few minutes and said, Mrs. Nelson, you'll be fine. We're going to send you home. And I'm with my pen and paper again.
Yeah.
And I said, what do I need to take? What do I need to do? And he said, you need to minimize your stress.
Yes.
You need to get some rest. And you don't need any medication or anything.
Okay.
Exercise, all the healthy stuff that I know anyway. So that
was your discharge process.
That was my kind of discharge. It was like, what?
Okay.
And within I think an hour and a half, 2 hours, I was being packed up and told to call for a drive and go home.
Okay. And
Yeah.
did you participate in cardiac rehab, or were you informed about cardiac rehab?
Yeah, they gave me some information, and it's kind of a blur, to be perfectly honest, because in the middle of that, you're trying to pay attention when somebody's talking to you, but I think I was just so exhausted. And, just so much other emotions going on that I remember them gave me a red, I just remember it was beautiful red, because red's my favorite color, but it was a red folder with information on it about heart health and eating healthy, and it was a whole bunch of stuff, and I thought, when am I going to find time to read all that? But I mean, I have to, right? But I just thought, whew, that looks like a lot.
Okay.
And then it was kind of, we're going to contact you about cardiac rehab. But what I didn't understand is, did I need cardiac rehab? Why did I need it? I didn't have anybody to really talk to about that, because I never saw a doctor again after that.
Okay, and was that on the last day? Like when
Yes.
they were telling you were going home, they gave you that folder?
Yeah.
But nobody went through the folder with you. They just kind of said, go through this, and somebody will be in
Yeah.
contact with you. Okay.
Yeah. It was, because I remember going, oh, what am I supposed to do with this? Just read this? And I thought, it's a lot. So is there pieces maybe, 30 pieces, or maybe to me, this is the way my brain works, is that when you're in that kind of state, if you had a checklist on the inside of that folder that said, if you had this, then do this, or if you had this, do this, or something, or this is
Like
what
a
you need to do
structure.
next. Structure, yeah. Like I have a game plan,
Yes, exactly
And as a
that.
fitness instructor, it's do this, do that, or managing a gym, a workout. Do this, then do this, then do this, right? And I just found it kind of overwhelming that I think I opened it a couple of times and flipped through, and then probably I fell asleep. Like I was probably
Did
in my
you
bed at the
ever
end
get
of
a
it.
call?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I got a call to go to the University of Moncton rehab center or whatever. Except I felt like a number. Like I didn't feel like a person. I felt like a number there. And I'm just being honest, is that
Yeah.
it just a lot of people were much older than me, right? So, and I wasn't understanding my situation, and there wasn't anybody that could really explain to me what happened because they didn't know my full story, right?
Yes.
Like why am I here if I had a stress kind of thing versus a valve
Yes.
replacement? And
Did you know the whole, like, what does it entail? Did they explain that? So you went on the first day, I'm assuming, to cardiac rehab.
yeah, and it was just in a little gym.
Okay, and
Tiny
did
little
they
gym.
say, you're here because you underwent this, and this is like 6 weeks long, or did you not know what to expect at all?
Well, it was going to be, I forget how many weeks it was, but it was so many weeks, and I was supposed to go, but I
2
didn't.
hours a day or something.
Yeah, or like an hour 3 times a week or something like that. And but I remember I'm a fitness person, right? So, and I've worked out at gyms. I just remember the equipment seemed old, kind of crappy, right? Like it just seemed rickety, right? And we were all kind of squished into, like it seemed too small a space that you felt comfortable, I guess. I don't know. And you were very self-conscious of everything, and everybody was. So, and I'm all about making people feel comfortable, so I just thought there could have been a better way. Like you could tell they were trying, but I'm like, okay, I do this for what? And I just wish I had understood what I was trying to gain. Like I know I was trying to work on my heart, but I don't know, just more maybe information or a chance to talk to somebody to go.
Do you feel like if it was more personalized based on what every person in that room has gone through, that would have been, yeah.
Yes. Because I mean, if you had a triple bypass, that's a whole lot different than what I had.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And I know of people, so I'm going, they're so delicate, they're this, and I guess it's just all the emotion type thing, like, with what mine was versus them. Do I need to be doing this? Why do I need to be? Like, I like to understand why I'm doing something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes sense. And how long were you in cardiac? Like, how many times did you go before you're like, I don't need this, or this isn't doing anything for me?
Well, I went for, I don't know, like I was trying to do what I was told, but I could tell that I was getting like a little bit stronger, like my wind was coming back. You know what I mean? Like I was.
What were you doing that they told you to do? Like what changes?
I would sit on a bike. I would sit on a bike, pedal for a few minutes, and then I would. I don't think there was a treadmill, if I remember correctly. but then there was a little bit of a weight machine, a couple of weight machines and stuff. But to me, as a fitness person, it didn't all make sense. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
and maybe it's my knowledge of that kind of made it kind of questionable, but.
Was everybody doing the same thing?
Pretty much, they were moving around between these machines. Yeah.
Okay. And was there somebody somebody watching all of you, or somebody going around being like?
Yeah, kind of a couple of people just watching the floor and keeping an eye on us. Yeah.
Okay. But what you're saying is you felt like it wasn't something that you needed or something that would have benefited your.
Yeah. Well, I just didn't know whether what was I trying to accomplish?
Right.
You know what I mean? Was I trying to get
What's
better
the goal
cardio?
here?
Was I trying to get better strength? What has my body undergone with me laying in bed for 7 days and going through this? What does my heart need? You know what I mean? I guess just trying to understand that a little bit better. And then at the same time, you're kind of nervous because, like, when I first left the hospital, I was like scared. What if something happens again?
Yeah.
You know? And,
Yeah.
and what are the signs for women? Still don't know.
Right.
Right?
Do they talk about prevention during cardiac rehab, or did you have a chance to talk about prevention, or other than lifestyle changes? Because I'm assuming that's what your cardiac rehab was about, correct? Like how to make lifestyle.
Yeah, but they didn't really talk much about that. It was just a little workout.
Okay.
That
So there was
I
nothing
don't
about.
recall any.
Was there anything about like dietitians or like a dietitian coming in talking to diets or food you should avoid, or?
No, it was just all of us kind of rotating in and going around, doing our thing when it was our turn, and then out. So.
Did you have a chance to talk to anybody or have a social kind of conversation with any of the folks in cardiac rehab, or no?
No, we did have conversations, but I don't know, maybe not as in depth, maybe, or because they didn't know exactly. And because I was trying to describe, this is what my heart did. I didn't have a new valve. I had this. You know what I mean? So I was trying to kind of like, what does that mean for me, or is it different for me, or you know what I mean? So the biggest thing I just took away from myself was just trying to minimize my stress.
Was there stress management strategies that they talked about at all, or no? No, it was just. So I guess coming from that, what adjustments would you have made from your perspective, since you've gone through this? What do you feel would have made a better and bigger difference in your recovery phase, instead of just being on a treadmill and walking and then everybody doing the same thing or feeling like a number, like you said, right?
Right. I think if they had, I don't know what the numbers are like, but if they had something that, whether it's on your own or maybe a group of you, like new people that were to the cardiac rehab, that kind of got together and you said, welcome to the cardiac rehab, and not that it's a group you're excited to be part of, but you know what I mean? Kind of
welcoming.
Welcoming, seeing you, giving you a chance to say, this is why you're here. This is what we're trying to accomplish. I know each of your situations are unique. However, we're going to meet with you one-on-one and talk about those so you understand, or, and just talk about, like, if you had, whatever I had, whatever that's called, I don't know what the name is for the, just like, contraction of a valve that read like that. Like, how common is that, and what is it called? So you could kind of talk about yourself to say, I didn't have a heart attack where I needed valve replacements, but I had a yada yada. You'd feel more intelligent about your body, right? And understanding yourself to go, mine did this because of stress, but is there something else physically that I, was doing that, I just want to understand, why did my heart do that?
Yes. And to this day, you still don't have that answer of why that happened, except that it may have been stress-induced?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And that's all I really, so since then, I mean, the biggest thing that I've been paying attention to is my stress level. And I just pay attention, I go, no, and I try to worry less.
Yeah.
And I just, instead of worry, there's a book that I have, it says, worry less and worship more. So instead, I just am grateful. Thank you for taking that away, so I don't have to worry about that. Thank you for handling that. You know what I mean? And I try to do that a lot.
So yes, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just pay attention to where my mindset, like what's playing in my mind, and I'm like, because I found that because I was in survival mode then, and I hadn't had really a moment that I really sat and looked at how much stress was on me and
Mm-hmm.
stopped because I couldn't. Right, there was
Mm-hmm.
too much on the go. My parents were dying on top of you know, me trying to do this and handle my kids and whatever. So there was no sitting and just not
Mm-hmm.
doing anything that
Mm-hmm.
I just became so aware of how much stress I was putting myself under and
Mm-hmm.
how almost like I felt like I kind of got addicted to worry that I wasn't going to be allowed to be without worry. You know what I
Okay.
mean? There wasn't going to be a day that I didn't have to worry
Yes.
about something because I was always trying to remember what I had to do as a mother or a father or whatever, like the house, the
Mm-hmm.
car, the kids, me, the
Right.
finances, right?
Keep thinking.
And
Just never
yeah,
stop.
just constant, right? So I started to become more aware of that. So I
Mm-hmm.
started doing things like Reiki and meditation and those kinds of things to change that and try to
Mm-hmm.
be aware of it more. So more education because I'm always
Education.
paying attention to things. And when I teach fitness classes, I'm always giving a fit tip,
Yes.
and I'm going, here's your fit tip for today, and if
Yes.
you have a sign of this, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
if I'd known, I would have been able to pay attention to myself. Excuse me.
Correct.
Oh God.
Any last words, any words of advice for somebody that is going through this experience? Anything that you'd like to pass on even to hospital staff?
I think for hospital staff, it would just be more, or well, I guess just be mindful that the person you're dealing with is scared. They don't know what their body's doing or has done. So they're just really on edge. So just however you handle things, just be gentle with that and know that this person is just scared to move. You know what I mean? Like, am I going to have something happen, right? And they're kind of on edge, I guess, is that. But, and as far as, the doctors that I had, were good at everything that they gave me and did. It's just the understanding, I think, between the steps or whatever
Mm-hmm.
and knowing what's happening or whatever. So, and anybody that's going through that, I think the biggest thing is just to be patient with yourself
Yes.
and just take the time to rest because the more that you do what you're told to do, in the long run, you'll be in better shape on the long haul because people start to feel good and then they go, oh, maybe I can not do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But there's different levels of that healing and things like that you can't always see. So you just have to be patient and then, but don't be afraid to ask questions because people are shy, and especially around doctors, like to ask
Mm-hmm.
questions. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of like, and I guess doctors sometimes, mine were very good and patient kind of for my questions, but some aren't so much. And that's the thing because if you have a question, it's important to get that answer from the source that you trust. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think this concludes our conversation today. It was really lovely talking to you, Bev, and super excited for everybody to be able to hear your story and even for circulation throughout the hospitals about your experience and what you went through, especially through cardiac rehab and how we can better improve and educate everyone about signs that they should be aware of and to improve our patient management and discharge processes.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yes, go ahead.
No, it's just I have to say since that experience I have such an appreciation for the St. John Hospital and how they manage the number of people and how I don't know, I call it slick. You know what I mean? They're efficient, I guess. That I just thought that was handled so well on that end that I was in awe. It was quite an emotional roller coaster, but quite an adventure, I call it.
Yes. Yes. And you're through it now. And how do you feel today, actually? I didn't ask you that. How do you feel today?
I feel great. And it's so funny because today I'm in my 60s, and most people think I'm in my early 50s, and I'm like, take life on and get it done and be enjoyable and wake up grateful every day, right? And look at the positives in life, especially these days. We've been through so much in the world that, I just try to every day be grateful that I'm here and I get to help others. That's what we're here for, is to help each other. So, in some way or another, I try to do that. So, yeah. Thanks for your time. It's been great
Thank
chatting
you
with
so
you.
much. Yes, I really appreciate it and hope to cross paths again.